rumbling in faith we look to thee. Whether the phantoms flash the truth you see, both I find earth around the world, your words are fair and true. When questions and debates arise, we always look to you. All time and space and liberty, rambling canopies all belong to thee. Rambling canopies all belong to thee.
Good evening, folks. Hope your evening is going well. Here I am again with another Enterprise review. Today, me and Captain Trek are going to review two episodes. The first being Dear Doctor, which just proves the world has a sense of humor, and also Sleeping Dogs. So, which is why we're a little bit late, because the episode went a little bit longer than I had anticipated, and we started a little bit later than I thought we were, and yeah, so it's been a gong
And
show.
we had a couple of technical issues.
Yeah,
as well.
a couple of glitches, just for fun, just because. So, Cap, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay, I guess.
That's a good thing. So, quickly take a run through the chat. We have LDG Pixels, who was here very early and just stopped by to say hi, and I appreciate that. Lori Roberts, welcome. Max World Entertainment, Trey, thank you for dropping in. Number One Sci-Fi, greetings. Chris Persia, welcome. Aberjam, welcome. And thanks again for the intro. And yeah, get on with it, Pinkskin. No, I take my bloody time.
Oh, by the way, I should tell you Darth Revan said hello to you.
Okay. I suppose I'll acknowledge his existence today.
Oh, you bloody Irishman.
Yeah, something like that. There's a few other words I use to describe half my family, but
We're talking ones that won't get us booted off of YouTube.
Well, that's a short list. All right. So, well, never mind this stupid first episode we have to go over. Yeah, tremendous. Boy, do I have timing. Anyway, so Dear Doctor, let's go with your brief overall, and then we'll get to the numbers later. But what's your brief overall of this episode?
Well, I find it interesting that we're dealing with two different species of that happen to reside on the same planet.
Yeah, it was an interesting dynamic. Aberjam. Anyway, so but yeah, I thought that was an interesting dynamic. What did you think about the moral question before we get into the actual episode? What did you think of the moral question that Archer faced? To play God or not to play God?
Well, I thought it was interesting that he questioned that, and how he in the episode stated that there would probably one day be a directive to cover this, but right now it was his choice. He had to make a choice based on what he thought best.
Yes. And he's, of course, hinting at the Prime Directive.
Of course.
However, okay, so let's go start at the beginning. So at the beginning of the episode, the Enterprise comes across a ship that is adrift. They save the occupants. Occupants inform them of a disease that is slowly killing their species. And they're a non-warp drive species. And it is mentioned that they have come across warp drive species, one being the Ferengi.
Correct.
What did you think of T'Pol's immediate, no, we have no idea of who the Ferengi are?
You lying bitch.
Yeah, pretty much, right? Yeah. Do you know these people? Nope. Don't know them. Yeah, that was rather interesting. That she would be like, yeah, no, we don't know who the Ferengi are. So I'm assuming by this point Earth hasn't ran into them, and that's why she's quada non grata on who they are, correct?
Of course.
Ah, okay. So that does add a little bit more insight into that.
Now, in later seasons, they do end up meeting the Ferengi, but we'll get there in time.
And no worries, Laurie Roberts. Thank you for dropping in. You're always welcome, even if we are talking Star Trek. You're always welcome. So then they go back and they start investigating the disease. And yes, Aberjam, I think you're correct. I think it was Picard that first met the Ferengi. I don't think they were in the original series.
No, they were not.
So yeah, it would have been Picard. But anyway, getting ahead of myself there. So Phlox is looking into the disease and why it affects one and not the other. And what I gather from this is the one race is the next evolutionary step in its development stages. And the race that has the illness is the one that is slowly being phased out by natural selection.
Correct.
Which poses an interesting dynamic because you have Archer, who, as a human sentiment, wants to save them and be damned of the ramifications. His moral compass is, well, to hell with it, we have to save them. And it isn't till the very end that he kind of backs off on that a little bit and gives them a medication to help. But even though Phlox could cure it, he doesn't give them the cure in the end, or push Phlox to tell him what the cure would be. I found that interesting. I also found that I liked the relationship development between Phlox and the captain.
Oh, absolutely.
I found that interesting. It helped to explain their characters a little bit more. The whole dating thing could have kind of not been there, but whatever.
That was just fluff.
Yeah, that was fluff.
A human being interested in a Denobulan.
Yeah. Although I do like when Phlox asks her, well, you realize that I have 2 other wives and they have, or
3
other wives and they have 2 other husbands and this is normal. And he goes, well, you're concerned about how this species is different. Why does this not concern you as much as my differences? And I found that interesting that he would use that as a waypoint to be able to kind of snap them into reality almost. And Aberjam UK says the episode explored the dilemma well. I felt Archer's final decision was a little out of character and a little out of the blue. In a way, yeah, it is. In a way, it is a little out of character for Archer. Archer, for the most part, up until now, has always been he's a man of his convictions, whether they're correct or incorrect, and be damned with anything else. If he truly believes something, he's going to do it one way or another. So him backing down in this instance I can kind of see where it would be out of character for him, but then at the same time, it could be viewed as a character growth moment where he realizes that he can't save everyone. He can't always do what he thinks is right, because in the grand scheme of things, it may not be right overall.
Yes, what is right now may not be right in years to come. And he has to think of the overall picture, not just of right now.
Yes. So the short-term Band-Aid may have ramifications that in the long run will be seen as something that is, we deal with this on a day-to-day basis, and not always on that scale where you're, affecting entire civilization, but short term, every day, like short term, you really want Chinese food, but you have $80 in the bank, and that Chinese food order is going to cost you $60. So you spend the $60 and you satisfy that craving, that want, short term, but now you have nothing to eat for the next 2 weeks because you've given into the short term want. Yeah, it's really simplifying it, but in a sense, it's the same thing.
Yes. And I think that, it would have been interesting in a future Star Trek series to go back to that planet and see what became of them. Because obviously, a long time has passed since then.
Absolutely. And you're welcome, Aberjam. Anytime I could help, just let me know. Mr. CCDV says hello. Just drop by to give a like. I'm a guest on Kathia Star's channel in a half an hour for Buffy. Love you guys. Awesome. Very cool.
Very cool.
Hope you have fun on her channel, and I hope that the show goes well. So I really like the way the messages were dropped in this episode. I think the writing was really well, and not specific to any part of the show, just the way the dilemmas were put forward, the way that unless you were really analyzing, you could miss certain ones.
Oh yeah.
Such as the moral dilemma over, well, how can we be okay with a race, let's call it Kettle Black, treating another race as a lesser? As humans, we have an issue with that sometimes. But on our moral compass, it's seen as, how could they live like this? This is wrong. They should be allowed to be independent, and even though the system is working, why break it? Is something that throughout Star Trek we run into, where something that we deem intolerable is tolerable by another race or another world, and it's an interesting thought process, because I wonder, as a civilization now in our present moment, not getting into anything that's going on nowadays, but are we really ready for space travel? Seriously?
Oh, absolutely not.
Because I can't see us keeping our bloody noses out of where it doesn't belong and imposing our morals on someone else.
We're pretty bad at doing that to ourselves.
That's kind of my point. I mean, I'd like to think that we'd make the decision that Archer does at the end of this episode. However, I have a hard time being able to say that with certainty. And I don't know if it's just I'm being cynical, but it is a very interesting thought.
I think that decision would be a lot harder than it would seem, because you don't want to see another species die out just because particularly if it can be saved. But they made a choice to help encourage another budding species that is growing, and that would be a hard decision to make.
It is, and it's an interesting conundrum, because you can make an argument on either side and both be semi-valid, which is the basis of any true argument. And it's just an interesting thought, and to see how it plays out in the episode, I found that it was very well done, and it wasn't the message in the episode wasn't, I guess, to use a common term of the day, beat over your head with a mallet. It was eloquently subjective in its deliverance.
Oh, absolutely. It was one of the more subtle messages of Star Trek, where it was presented, it was there, but it wasn't a beat you over the head type of, here, you're presented with this.
Okay, so I think we've touched on this one, and we've still got a second episode. So
yes.
I'm going to go with, what was, out of 10, what would you have given this one, Cap?
Honestly, overall, I'd say a 6.
Okay.
It got into some good things, and I think that's, it had good writing. But there were a few minor things that I think will be worked out in the upcoming seasons. So yeah. What about you? What would be your impression overall?
I would definitely say that it's about a 7 for me, and the reason I say a 7 is not because of story progression, I would say, but just because it touched on a couple of very hot button issues, and it left you, instead of irate because it sided one way or the other, it left you thinking about said topic and not angry about the message that was said in the show, but more retrospective and in thought of the message that was presented. So in that sense, I would give it a 7 because it was enjoyable. It still kept my entertainment, but at the same time, I left the episode thinking, as opposed to angry one way or the other.
So you're saying you don't want to go back and watch that first episode we watched again?
No, I do not. And Mr. CCTV says we cannot manage space for ourselves, let alone imposing our morals on any others. Yeah, exactly. Never mind space, our own backyard sometimes. Aberjam UK says the Prime Directive is BS. If we applied the same principles to Earth's animals, they'd all be extinct due to our refusal to act on their behalf. You know, that is an interesting point, because as humans right now, we do that all the time. We intervene, especially if we find the animal cute. We intervene.
I think the one difference is that a lot of times we are the direct cause of the need for intervention.
There is that. So there is that side of it. However, you could, and again, it's one of those issues that you could make a argument on one side or the other, and either side not be 100% correct either way.
Absolutely. But I think it's important to see the sides that are there.
Oh, absolutely. So moving on, because we do have the second episode, to Sleeping Dogs.
Yes, we do.
What was your overall on that one? What was your overall thoughts on that?
Klingons are assholes.
Uh-huh. And Aberjam says, that is what I love about good Star Trek. It sparks great discussions. Absolutely. Not only Star Trek, but shows in general. So, yeah, I mean, this episode involving the Klingons did not send me into a tirade as much as the last one, which you so nicely reminded me of a little while ago.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm. And Aberjam wants to know if you just called Worf an asshole.
Well, yeah, actually.
Yeah, actually. Okay, so that's the official statement, Aberjam.
Not that it isn't deserved, but yes.
Okay, so you have the official answer now. I'm glad I could clear that up. All right, so oh boy, that went south and quick. All right, so let's rein this in a little bit more.
Sorry, Burn to Prey 5.
Oh yeah. All right, so this episode, I liked it to a degree, but for me, it wasn't as entertaining as the previous one. This one was more it wasn't the worst episode I've ever watched.
You can watch that again if you want.
No, and it wasn't the best episode I've ever watched, but it was it. I mean, we got to see a little bit more of the Klingons. If we hadn't, if this is your first introduction kind of to Star Trek, if you're watching Enterprise is your first introduction, you're getting a little bit more of an introduction to the Klingons. They still look like Klingons, which is always nice. And they kind of act like Klingons in this one, which was kind of nice, unlike the last episode where they didn't. I liked Archer's ability to adapt himself to what he was, the situation he founded himself in. So he's dealing with a race he knows very little about, so he actually does research on said people. Go figure. To try to have better communications with them, he actually does research on them. Imagine that.
Well, based on the past experience he has had, it's always been negative.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to figure out how we can change that so it may not be as negative.
Yes, and I think he did an admirable job in that sense. I think one could even, I don't know, very true, Aberjam. Very true. He says what you have to remember about the Klingons is that, like every species, they have common traits, but there are those who deviate from the norm. Yes, and I do like how he starts to learn to be able to use some of, I guess, the Klingon tropes against the Klingons, which is something Picard used to do like every TNG episode that ever involved a Klingon. He would tactfully use it against them, and bring them to his side by kind of guilting them into doing it, which is kind of funny. So I did like that aspect. I don't. I mean, if you wanted to get a nitpick about the episode, the ship is getting crushed by a gas giant.
Class 9.
Class 9 gas giant. And the hull is starting to buckle. And we're supposed to believe that a 6 torpedo explosions 500 kilometers off the bow didn't do any damage to said ship.
Or the fact that it raising up so fast would not damage the ship because of the change of pressure.
Yeah, it didn't damage the ship. It's like, okay, you're launching all 6 at the same time. Your weapons analyst is saying, well, let's launch them 600. No, we're going to bring them up to 500, even closer. You were worried about detonating 2 of them too close to the ship. Now you're detonating all 6. And the ship holds together. Not only holds together, but they get it flying again, and they fly out of the gas giant under their own power, no less.
And of course, Klingons, being Klingons, they threaten to.
Yeah, they threatened to attack the Enterprise. Which again, that's where Archer learns how to confront a Klingon without having to draw your weapon, which is to discuss the honor of said ability to do so. Although I would have liked to know what Archer would have done if, when he had given his "I will blast you back to where I found you," if the Klingon commander's response would have been, "It is a good day to die," and gone off the screen. Yeah. Aberjam says, yeah, but Picard was an arrogant, hot-headed asshole. Only sometimes. Other times he was quite sensible. But sometimes he was a little arrogant. A little bit. Just a little bit. Sometimes. At least according to Kurtzman and Anti-Tracker. I don't know. Picard was one of my favorite captains, so
You're biased.
I'm biased as hell. He wasn't always an asshole.
No.
Sometimes. I don't know. Some of my best friends are assholes. I don't know. Maybe it's just the company I keep. That's terrible. All right.
It's also true.
Yeah. See, I had way more to talk about with the first episode, so I'm kind of glad that we went with that one, because this one was just kind of
it was filler.
It was filler.
It really was.
It just it wasn't all that good, really. I mean, this one's a 5 for me right out of the gate.
Yeah, I have to agree.
It's not. I mean, it's not brutal, but it's not great. The story is kind of didn't need to happen, kind of thing. It just seems like we need an episode for next week. Okay, well, we'll have a random meeting of the Klingons, and they're in distress, and then they save their ship. Oh, okay, cool. And it just fell flat as hell.
And the other thing, with Reed having a cold, it's just like, okay, this was introduced randomly, and who cares?
Oh, but there's an issue I do have. Okay, so Reed has a cold. Reed goes to an alien ship. Everything that Reed touches, he contaminated.
Yeah. And who was it? Was it the doctor that said as long as he had his biosuit on?
Yeah.
He'd be fine.
Yeah, which they immediately open up the biosuit.
Yeah.
Which, therefore, now he's contaminating everything. What I kind of almost would have liked to happen was him being forced to stay behind because of him being ill.
That would have made more sense, but
because why would you allow? Well, first of all, you're allowing your armory specialist to go on an away mission and he's ill. She's not at 100%. And thank you, Max World Entertainment, for dropping by. And we'll be ending this shortly. And at 8 o'clock, Max World Entertainment Trey will be going live. I hope to see you all there. I'll be over there as soon as we're done. So I really hope that you all will jump over and show Trey some love when he goes live. His shows are always fun to watch and entertaining. So after we're done, I hope everyone will jump over and say hi. I also believe Life with Matthew will be going on later on. So hope to see you over there. And but definitely check out Max World Entertainment and also Life with Matthew later on this evening. And hope to see Trey later on. I'll be in his chat later on.
Absolutely.
When we finish this off. And thank you, Trey, for dropping by. It's always good to see you in the chat. But anyway, back to what I was kind of rambling on. Rambling, Canuck, rambling. Go figure. I lost my train of thought. Yeah. So what did you think?
Cold.
Yeah.
You were talking about the cold.
Oh yeah, the cold. I don't understand the logic of allowing him. Like he's a valued member of your crew. He's not at 100%, and you're sending him over to an away mission where he really should have all of his faculties for. So that part of it didn't make sense to me.
No.
He should have been forced to stay behind. I think that would have been a much more interesting dynamic where it would have been him beating himself up because he's not over there and he should be. But because he's ill, he's not.
Exactly. Okay, what would you rate it overall?
Yeah, well, we kind of touched on this early because it's a fluff episode. I give it a 5. I mean, it's meh. It's a meh for me.
Yeah.
And meh to me is 5 out of 10. It's not exciting. It's not what the are they doing, but it's just it was there. I watched it.
I'd agree.
I'll never watch it again.
It was a 5, and yeah,
it's just one of those where it's like if you skipped it, you ain't missing much.
No.
And Admiral, I would never sing that song. However, if you had been at karaoke, was it last week? Yeah.
Yes.
Last week and the week before, I might even add. Captain Trek already did it. So,
been there, done that.
Yeah,
did it better than they do.
Absolutely, I tolerated it. I could live with it. I still can't live with the way they did it, but get to season 3 already. I wish. But we're
going to start watching more episodes so we can get there a little faster.
But, yeah, because this is. I don't know. There just seems to be a lot of filler for season 1, but
yeah, we can already say it's been a long road.
Oh yeah, I think I'll be saying that when we get to season 3.
I do too. Unfortunately,
if I don't go stock craving mad before then. But yeah, so I think what we'll do is we'll end it off here. I want to thank everyone in the chat for coming. I hope that everybody enjoyed yesterday's video. I will also kind of give a couple of little heads up and an amendment to my weekly update. Tomorrow, I'm going to be on Honstar's channel. Originally, it was going to be at 1 o'clock Eastern, noon my time. However, he has pushed it ahead so that it'll be 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central. Just a little bit of a scheduling change there. And also, I hope that everyone will tune in tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. The second edition of Rambling Canucks Roundtable Reviews will drop, except it is on TNG Encounter at Farpoint Station Part 1, because we split that episode into 2 parts as we did the Cage. So the way that it will work going forward is Tuesdays will be the roundtable review on TOS. Wednesdays will be Enterprise. Thursday will be roundtable reviews on TNG. So I'm hoping that everybody likes the video content and the live format. We wanted something a little bit different from the Enterprise review, so we went video format and added Advanced Major.
Yes.
So I hope that everybody will enjoy those.
And they just so happen to be on right after Loki's show in the morning.
Yes,
So-
they do. They
so you
drop
can-
exactly right when he ends. And I may or may not have done that on purpose. And then, of course, tomorrow night, I will be on the Real Review 3000 channel. And that looks to be a very interesting show. And that's at 7 o'clock Central, 8 Eastern. So tomorrow I'm a little busy. 2 shows and a video that will drop on the channel. And then, of course, Saturday we'll be winding things up as we always do with our karaoke Saturdays. Because, yeah, after a long week of BS and bull and drama, nothing like having a few drinks and singing a few songs and having a few laughs with a few friends. And
a drama-free zone.
Yes, absolutely. So with that, folks, I am going to end this by saying what I always say. Till next time, take her easy, folks.